Hello and welcome to the Collective Spotlight. Happy Tuesday to everybody. As you guys could tell, we have not restocked the wall from our awesome Wednesday show that we just had last week. But I do have an awesome guest with me today, Frank Martin, who is the writer of a project on Kickstarter. I'm going to go ahead and bring Frank out. This is actually the first time we've done an interview for a current Kickstarter, because you still have 22 days to go, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I'm gonna trust your math on that. I haven't checked myself.
So yeah, I think I have it open here. Let me double check. Yeah, 22 days. And so tell me about the book that you have going. It's the Macabre Hotel, right? Or Macabre Motel?
Or the Macabre.
Okay.
It was funny when I title it. I'm like, I don't know how to pronounce the word. I know what it means. I should probably, before I start talking to people online, I should probably look up how you say it. And you can say it the Macabre or the Macabre, either one.
Okay. So the Macabre, I'm going to call it the Macabre Motel because I like pronouncing all the letters, but that's just me. So I know that when you sent it to us as a kind of a solicited, advanced solicit, you said that it's kind of like a Twilight Zone tale.
That's the general feel I was going for when I wrote it. I wanted a story. It's a standalone story. It's not part of a larger series, but it's got one of those you're traveling along with a guy and he goes through an experience and you're experiencing it along with him. That was just kind of, and I felt that was a real Twilight Zone vibe.
And you introduced us. I've gotten a chance to read it. You introduced us to a lot of characters throughout, characters that are staying at the motel. Tell me a little bit about that process. You see them, some of them for only short amounts of time, but tell me about
them. So they're kind of either guests at the motel or residents of a motel. It's not really totally explained. I leave a lot to the reader to kind of fill in the blanks. And the idea behind this was that just to create an ensemble of characters that are as weird as possible. Just kind of freaky, weird, bizarre, strange. And then they're staying in each, there's a line in the book that kind of really exemplifies what it's all about. And the guy, when he first gets there, the manager of the motel says that when guests stay here, we want it to feel like home for them. And the premise behind that was that each of these strange characters, each of their room is going to be tailored to them. So it could be anything. It could be a swamp. It could be a mountain full of forests. It could be a desert. So whatever freaky things these people are into, wherever they're from, that's kind of the room that they're going to encounter along the way.
Gotcha. So talk to me a little bit about what was your inspiration. First of all, tell me about your inspiration, that what got you into comics, and then your inspiration of what got you to want to write this book.
So I've always wanted to write. I've always loved being a writer, telling stories for forever. And I was traditionally a prose guy. I was writing fan fiction growing up in high school, and eventually that came into more original works. And then at some point in time, my love of reading comics and my love of writing stories, like so many, just kind of meshed together. I'm like, I could do this. I could totally write a comic. And then, like so many others, started the process and realized it's a little bit more involved than that. It's not just I want to do it, let me go and do it. And I've been doing this for a couple of years, taking my licks, learned a lot. And so, yeah, eventually I dabble in a whole lot. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy. I love it all. So, and this is kind of it's not scary horror. I'd like to call it like atmospheric horror. It's
exactly.
It's not in your face. We're going to scare you. We're going to freak you out with a bunch of monsters. This is kind of a slow building dread where before you know it, you're just kind of trapped in a situation and you don't know what to do with.
So let me ask you, you mentioned that it's a one shot. But it totally, the motel itself almost feels like, to be honest, the motel feels like the main character in some aspects. Is it something that you could see yourself revisiting, even with maybe a whole new set of people in the motel at that time?
Yeah, I'm getting that question a lot because a lot of people say, look, you could take each one of these characters and just do a story on every one of them.
Yep.
So I never say never for anything. I'm always up if people keep asking me and keep poking me enough, I'll certainly dive into it. But for now, this was mainly just a one shot. That's you get in, you experience this craziness, and you get out and you're just left scratching your head.
I like it.
So far, a lot of people have said that they like it, so I'm getting a good response.
Cool. So tell me a little bit why Kickstarter. I mean, I know right now there are a lot of people going to Kickstarter, especially during the pandemic. You know, not a lot of publishers are taking on people. But tell us a little bit about why you picked Kickstarter and crowdfunding and everything like that for this book.
So from the prose side of things, when I write a book, my expenses are fairly low. You know, I write the thing, you might need a cover, some editing. Recouping those costs is not like a mountain that you have to climb in regards as compared to a comic. You know, they're really expensive to get off the ground. And my first couple comics were they sold, but they're always kind of in the hole, because you have to really climb up high in order to hit that expensive goal. And then after a while, I'm like, let me try some Kickstarter. People are successful. You set your funding goals so people know what you're going to hit. And Kickstarter it's really an event. You know, it gives you a chance to really focus for a period of time on doing everything you can to try to promote this book, push this book, get people get excited for it. If you're just launching a comic and you say, for 30 days, I'm going to do a whole bunch of crazy stuff, it's not as excited as you're on Kickstarter and I got to hit that funding goal, and there's stretch goals and now there's add-ons. So it's just, it's like a party, and they throw a whole bunch of party events at it. And it's a reason for people to get excited. And it's me and so many other creators, it's allowed us to recoup a lot of those costs that go into the book.
Awesome. And so talk to me a little bit about your pledge levels, man. As I was going through this, you have, first of all, your book is unique, but your pledge levels are pretty unique. You know, you start off with, you know, some variant covers, holofoil covers, which I absolutely love. You do a variant bundle. You have a theme song.
I got a copy of it right here. I got a proof of the holofoil. So I'm like, I want to see what this looks like before I start handing out to people.
No,
and I'm really impressed with how it came out. So
I'm just gonna go down here on some of the ones that catch my intrigue. Theme song. What is that? How did that come along? I guess, is it kind of like how, you know, everybody knows the Twilight Zone theme song? Do 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 do. Is that kind of your idea, that in your head as you read this book you hear a theme song?
So I'm not a big music guy. I can't compose music at all. I used to make machinima back in the day when I was a teenager, and somebody that I worked with, his name was Lane Thomas. He scored all my stuff, my videos that I made, and he was awesome. So I haven't spoken to him in a couple of years. I reached out to him and I said, I'm doing a bunch of comic projects. Before I just start hiring you for a bunch of them, let's try this one. It's horror themed. I'm going to send you the book, read it, and just spit out what you're feeling. He sent me one track. He says, let me know. I'm like, I'm done. This is perfect. And so yeah, I commissioned him to make a theme of it. It's got kind of a Twilight Zone-ish spooky vibe to it. I have it, a preview of it on the page right above the preview pages, so that people could kind of click it, hear what it sounds like, and then check out the pages for the book. So maybe if you see it, you can give it a click, get a little preview of what it sounds like.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually just went ahead because we got Phil Leone. He's in here watching. He says, hey, Danny. Hey, Frank. We got Marshall Lewis. He says, what's up, everyone? I went ahead and dropped the link to the Kickstarter so everybody can see where your project is. They can go ahead and back it there. We will be carrying some here in the store. Me and you actually started talking like a month before you even launched the Kickstarter. We were already going back and forth.
Well, I know that a lot of people get booked up, and I like to get in front of schedules and say, I got a Kickstarter launching in a year and a half. Let me know when I can. Because if you can't really message people, I'm launching tomorrow. You got any openings? Some people say yes.
Yeah.
Other people are like, no. So I like to just give people enough time, enough headway, so that I'm not kind of jamming my book.
No, yeah, you are awesome, because I've already, you know, like I said, I had a chance to read it. I've been excited about it now for some time. Let me talk about another unique pledge. So you're a writer. Occasionally we see pledges, tiers that will be like art commission. You have, and you do offer an art commission. That is the next tier after this one. But you also are offering a short story commission by you. Where did that idea come about? And have you done short stories before?
Yeah, I've written so many short stories. This is my 7th Kickstarter. I think I've always offered that kind of tier, that level. And some people do pick it up, and I've written stories for people's children, and stories for grandparents and stuff like that. So it's a good way to tailor a gift just for them. And this idea came about out of jealousy. I would get really jealous at conventions where artists can just do a commission on the spot, and I'm like, can I just like take a typewriter and just type up a commission at a convention and just so yeah, this came out of that kind of concept where so many artists that are so talented, I'm a terrible artist, are just able to give a piece of personalized work, no matter the occasion. So I'm like, damn it, I'm gonna do it myself. So I throw it up there, and I always get a couple of them every campaign, which is awesome.
That's awesome. And then when someone claims that, do they kind of tell you what they want from the short story, and then you kind of like an art commission, they tell you make what they want essentially?
Essentially. I mean, for every campaign, I pretty much give a prompt. Like for this, I say, I'll tailor an experience of you staying at the motel for a night. So if they want to do that, that's great. But if whatever they want, it doesn't really matter. Some people get really specific in their stories. Others are just give me a vague idea, whatever they want, and I'll kind of just have at it. And they're 1,000-word short stories. And a lot of times I'll say, because I have a mailing list where I share a whole bunch of free stuff to people. I say, do you care if I share this? Sometimes they say no, I just want to keep it to myself. Other times they say, whatever you want, just share it with the world.
Go ahead and share it. Cool. So a lot of people have a tier, and you have, first of all, your tiers are amazing. Because every tier that I can think of, you have. But usually people have a tier where it's like you get drawn into the comic or become a character in the comic, and you guys have that. You guys then go the next level and offer to help collaborate and make is it a 5-page comic? So tell me about that idea, man. That is super unique to me. I think there's tons of people in the industry, like as collectors and hobbyists, that would love to be able to do that. Where did that idea come about?
That just came about from, because comics are really complicated. You know, there's a lot that goes into them. You don't even realize it until you start making a comic yourself, the different levels that you have to take in order to produce this thing. And it's a tier so that if anybody wants to make a comic, but they're unfamiliar with it and they have a vague idea, they just need some guidance along the way, we're here to help you do that. And a lot of it's an expensive tier, but a lot of that expense is going to go right into the creation of the comic. So it's not like a lot of it's going to come to us, the creative team behind the Macabre Motel.
So again, to go back to talk about the book now, because I went through most of your tiers here. Again, the book is on Kickstarter if you still want to support it. He's got about 22 days left. But I want to talk again about the book a little bit and the characters. Sure. We talked about how, there's very different kind of weird people staying at the motel. Where did you get some of the inspiration for these people? I don't want to spoil anything about who these people are, because I think some of them you just see them for a second. But where did the inspiration come from some of these guys?
Yeah, it's really all over the place. I think a lot of it was probably subconscious from just seeing weird people throughout film and throughout TV and in real life. For instance, there's a tall, lanky guy. Everybody has this tall, lanky creepazoid that kind of just lurches around. And then there's another character, Chester. He calls himself the motel ambassador. He's the guy who shows our main character around, introduces him to everybody. Yeah. And this is really the first time when you're reading the book where you experience these people are kind of off, because he's so in your face, happy all the time. He's too friendly. And this book is really relatable because everybody knows that guy that's just too friendly, wraps his arm around your shoulder. You don't want him to, always invite you for a drink. So yeah, it's borrowed from a lot of sources, and I kind of just, it's almost like the Justice League, where I took a bunch of people from a bunch of different stuff and I crammed them all into one story.
It's so funny you say that, because the housekeeping lady that we meet very early on and then throughout, at the very beginning, that first interaction where she's kind of like off-putting or whatnot, I immediately thought, oh my God, this is like every cleaning lady I've ever met at any small off of the highway motel. It felt very real while being kind of fun. I knew the book wasn't super humorous, but to me, I kind of got a chuckle out of it.
Yeah. Well, it's not, like I said, it's not meant to be in your face horror. It's weird, bizarre horror. So there's a lot of you're gonna look at, and it's unsettling, but you're gonna laugh at it because it's just so awkward and uncomfortable. And yeah, she's grumpy for no reason at all, which is
exactly
a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about how like this is a one shot, and for right now this is just like going to be one venture for you right now. But are there any plans, like do you have a prequel set up? Have you thought about doing an ash can? I know you have your stretch goals set up for the most part. But I mean, the Kickstarter is doing. I'm gonna pull up the most updated numbers because I know it's doing really well. You're almost at 2,000 already. I know you have a little bit to go to goal, but you're doing really well. How do you gauge if? Because I mean, sales can be really well, but then you can also have people asking for it. How do you gauge if you want to come back to this? Like, is it more of what the fans want? Is it if you are really feeling it? How do you decide?
It's a combination of all those factors. I would say the biggest factor is myself. And I don't want to be selfish. Sorry, fans or people that give me money. Thank you. But for the most part, it's really got to be a story, especially in creator-owned comics. It's got to be a story that hits you. So this was a lot of fun. I had a blast with it. I would have no problem jumping back into it. But I don't want to say this is popular. Everybody loves this. I'm going to have to force a story or figure out a story. I don't want to do that. If for some reason I'm on a jog someday or on a long car ride and it hits me in the head and I got it, I have no problem going for it. But for right now, I got nothing in the tank as far as the Macabre Motel. I'm all in the
it's all in there. Awesome. So tell me a little bit. I've talked to a few creators now about the Kickstarter process. Okay. It definitely helps them get their book out there. But there are a few things. There's ups and downs. Talk to me about once this is funded, which you do still have about 1,000 to go. Once we get this funded here, what is your process to then? You wait for the funds, you get it printed correct, and then are you signing before distributing them? Are you having the printer distribute them?
So like I said, this is my 7th. So It's funny because no matter how many you've done, you always seem to screw up somewhere down the line of finishing it. So for this one, what I plan to do is the book is all completed. Okay. Kickstarter, they say 14 days, but for some reason when I click launch, they updated that to 21 days. So that's kind of a crazy time to finish your Kickstarter and then wait for those funds to come in. So. And I've had issues with printers and delays. So I made a promise to myself that it ends on the 28th. On the 29th, I'm just going to put the order in. And I'm just going to put it on a credit card. And when the funds come in, I'll just pay it off. Because I don't want to wait that time anymore because I'm planning a whole bunch of launches down the line. And if I get delayed on the funds and then if I get delayed on the printing side, it's just going to push everything back. So I'm really going to focus on delivering as quickly as possible. And I'm probably even going to send out digital rewards the next day too. So
gosh, that's awesome.
I'm really going to push to have a fast fulfillment on this one.
Yeah, no, and that's amazing. I can speak as both a retailer and just a collector in general. Kickstarter is new to some people. I know when we started the collective initiative, a lot of people were like, "Oh, why didn't I hear this book? Oh, it was on Kickstarter. What's Kickstarter?" Or when then I explain them Kickstarter, some of the old timers are very hesitant. Oh, I got to give them money and then I don't get a book for 2 months. So it's a little odd. But I can say that I super appreciate when creators' main goal is to fulfill as quickly as possible, because I do understand that there's hiccups. Sometimes people may cancel at the very last minute, but the quicker the book can come out, the better. Correct?
Yeah, Kickstarter is a weird animal, and there's I don't want to say a perception problem with it, but a lot of people use it for different things. So people's perception of it can definitely vary. I backed books where people say, we finished 5 pages of a 90-page book. We need money to finish it. We're not going to finish it for 2 years, in which case you know what you're getting into. Other people like myself, I kind of, as a rule of thumb, don't put a book on Kickstarter unless it's at least 90% done. In this case, it's 100% done, and I'm putting on Kickstarter to not create the book, but just basically recoup costs on funding the book and getting it printed, so that I can either sell it at conventions or signings, and of course send it out to backers. So a lot of people think of Kickstarter as fundraising or charity or donations. In my eyes, it's mainly just a pre-order system. You're just there's no difference to if you're ordering something from Diamond in the shop and you need to pay up front for it. So it's really what it is. And as long as you explain that to people and you change people's perceptions on it, I think it's going to be a lot successful. And you're seeing a whole bunch of huge creators that are jumping on Kickstarter. I mean, Keanu Reeves finished his one, so it's definitely moving a lot into the mainstream very quickly.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. So let me then ask you, when it comes to Kickstarter, do you, if I'm not mistaken, Kickstarter does now have an implementation that you mentioned that you're going to have multiple Kickstarters going on. You cannot launch a new Kickstarter until you fully fulfilled your previous Kickstarter. Is that the way they operate, or can you have multiple Kickstarters run?
No. So when I say I have more down the line, their rule has always been you can't run 2 Kickstarters at the same time.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and a lot of people try to get around that. They'll have 2 different accounts, and then they get jammed up if Kickstarter finds out. They might ban one account and whatnot. So their main thing is not fulfillment. Their main thing is just basically running them at the same time. So a lot of people will finish a campaign, they have a book in production, and then they'll launch the next Kickstarter, which I never do. Again, my own rule of thumb, I'm not going to launch Kickstarter until I make sure all the backers have the book in hand from my previous one.
Awesome.
You don't have to do that, but that's just me. It keeps myself.
That's your personal.
Awesome. Yeah. It keeps myself on.
So, Frank, I have a question for you. I went through all your pledge tiers, and I didn't see a retailer tier. Are you planning on? I mean, we're gonna want the book, but are you planning on reaching out to retailers, or were you hoping to go direct and get it straight in the hands of fans?
For this one particular, I'm going straight to fans. Of course, doesn't mean that I won't work with retailers. We've had a conversation, so it's certainly something that can be arranged. You know, there's only so much you could do at once. I've tried, and I'm running it myself. So maybe sooner or later down the line, I'll for my next campaign, I might have a retailer tier. So it's just one of those things you got to get around to doing, and you can only do so much stuff at once.
Gotcha. So we got 5 minutes left here, Frank. I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor, man. Tell everybody about your book. Tell everybody, I have the link still here. I'll go ahead and throw it up on the screen, but just essentially use this time here to tell them about the book.
So the Macabre Motel, the way I sell it is it's a very simplified story. You know, it's not a spy thriller with a very overcomplicated plot. It's not a slasher story where you got this killer that's running around and he's got a huge backstory. It's very relatable is the word that I keep using when I'm coming back to it. You know, a guy is driving late at night. He gets tired, so he needs to pull over. Everybody stayed in a bed that's not their own. Everybody's either had an Airbnb or a sleepover or stayed in a motel or a hotel. And that's the scenario, the situation that comes up. And everybody's fear or worry is that the place that they're staying is something's off about it. Something's not right. And this guy gets kind of sucked into that situation where he's just hoping that it's going to, for a brief time, these people are weird, I'm going to muscle through it. But by the time he realizes that it's just too crazy and he wants to get out of there, it's too late and he's trapped. And that's where the dread and the doom and the terror comes in. So if you're into horror, Twilight Zone, I've heard it had a Twin Peaks vibe to it. Even something like Beetlejuice, you know, quirky horror. So if you're into that kind of stuff, check it out, give it a shot, and I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I found it to be, like you said, kind of quirky horror. Like I said, I'm sure they weren't written as jokes per se, but there are definitely, like you said, the relatable, fun moments that you I, as the reader, find myself chuckling because I'm like, wow, that's happened to me. That's happened to me in real life. Or like you said, I've met this man in real life.
Yeah. So everybody's had those moments where they interact with someone and they're super weird and they hope it's just like a brief period of time that I'm going to be able to deal with this guy. And they just kind of like, all right, I'll just deal with him. But the guy that's going through this it's not that brief.
He's having himself a day. So go ahead. I have the link up there. They can find you on Kickstarter. What are some of your stretch goals? I know you're working on some stretch goals right now, right?
Yeah, for stretch goals, I'm going to offer a digital comics bundle. That's always a big one. People like doing that one. I think I'm going to do some bookmarks, but for the most part, I'm not a fan of putting stretch goals up there until you hit your funding goal. I think that's counting your chickens before your hatch. So,
hey, I like that, man. I like the way this guy thinks, man. I'm gonna have to get you. If you're not already in the comics related madness group, I'll have to get you in there. We got a lot of creators in there and stuff like that. I think you'd be a good fit in there. But again, thank you so much, Frank. The book is the Macabre Motel, right?
Sure.
The Macabre. The Macabre Motel. It is currently on Kickstarter with another 22 days left. He does need a little bit, just under 1,000, I believe, to get funded. But I know with what you did in your first week, you're going to get there no problem. We will have the book here at the Collective, hopefully signed copies, if Frank can make that happen once we're done. And thank you so much, Frank. We'll definitely make sure to follow up with you once the book comes out and any future projects. And you said you're on Twitter. You're on Twitter, right?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. My handle under all three is Frank the Writer, @Frank the Writer. So
there you go, guys. Follow Frank @Frank the Writer. And thank you so much, Frank. Best of luck with the book, and we'll keep our eyes on how it does the rest of the campaign.
I appreciate it.
Take it easy, Frank. Absolutely, man. So that was Frank Martin here with Macabre Motel. You can find it on Kickstarter. Got the link right here. I'll go ahead and drop that in the show notes afterwards as well. Thank you so much for Frank for joining us. That is just another book that we will have on our Collective Spotlight. On one of these days, we'll actually bring you out to the store so that you guys can see the whole Collective Spotlight section. It is growing, and me and Steven are spending every day trying to figure out what we're going to do with it. But thanks again to our guest, Frank Martin. And remember, tomorrow on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we will be doing our Collective Spotlight auction. This wall will be full of comics, and we'll have some cool signed goodies to give away as well. So join us tomorrow, 5:30, on all the Collective channels. Have a good one.